Let's get into our conversation for this hour, and it ties directly with the headline on the Business Daily front page. Uber and Bolt drivers to get powers for setting fares. A new bill cuts firms' control of prices, and the CAK is set to regulate ride-hailing platforms. Now, we've been seeing various reports about potential changes in the pricing models for ride-hailing in Kenya. Doubling of the base fare, for example, you keep hearing that. You can't find it on any particular document that says base fares will move from 220 to 450 or so and so.
Yeah.
But we have been seeing a push by drivers to have more control as far as fares are concerned. What does this mean for the drivers? What does this mean for ride-hailing apps? What does this mean for consumers? And I know a lot of people watching are either a driver or a rider, one of the two. So we'll talk about what that looks like.
Or an app.
Or people watching are an app. You know what? Agentic AI, it's possible. It is quite possible. Agentic AI is watching as well. Yeah. But we have tech consultant and journalist Moses Kemibaro in studio with us. He'll talk about what exactly this would look like for all parties involved if we were to double taxi fares, digital taxi fares. Good morning, Moses.
Yeah, morning. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm well.
We start off with a quote of the day. Phalaris will share the quote. Let us know if it speaks to you, if you agree or not. Okay.
Karibu sana Moses. Today's quote is courtesy of Paulo Coelho. You know, when I was thinking about Paulo Coelho, it's the books that we read from him are translated because he writes in Portuguese and then they have to be translated. So
yes.
I don't know how much is lost in the translations, but today's quote is courtesy of Paulo Coelho. The quote reads, "The world is not changed by opinion, it is changed by example." How does that speak to you?
I think it makes sense in the sense that an opinion is something that just resides within you. You have an opinion. An example is something you can see that is tangible, that is real. And therefore, that example can either inspire you to do something, possibly could be something that's negative or positive, but it's something that is more visible than an opinion. It's tangible.
Yeah.
Beautifully well said. Moses, you're founder and you're actually very big on .savvy. That's where we consume a lot of tech information. I know you've been following the issue of these ride-hailing apps and that ecosystem, right? So from what we know there's an app. You, as somebody who wants to get a taxi, you go to the app, you say where you want to go. A taxi links you up with the driver. Driver comes, picks you up. It tells you how much you pay, right? You get into the imekupatia ngapi? Or sometimes they don't ask you. Sometimes the app gives you a discount and tells you you have been given a discount because you're a loyal customer, so you only pay the driver this much. Or sometimes this is a free ride. All right. Then the complaints have been coming from mostly, particularly the drivers and the vehicle owners. That hizi vitu zinatunyanyasa. Hizi vitu zimetoka huko majuu, wanakuja hapa wazungu, wanatunyanyasa na wanachukua biashara yetu. From all that, have there been justification for the complaints that have come from the owners and drivers of the cabs?
Well, first of all, let's start from the basis of where things were before. And I think you need to imagine the times that were about maybe, 13, 14 years ago when these services first came to the market. If you asked yourself today, taking a taxi, the old school taxis, the ones that used to have the yellow strip on the side,
line,
from here to JKA, even then, what do they have charged you?
Their cost is usually
1,500.
Yeah, those days, right?
Yep.
And today, chances are?
1,200.
Still?
No. It's actually more expensive.
You reckon?
Depends on the time.
From Nation Center to the airport?
It depends.
Could it be less than 1,000?
It depends on the time.
It's actually going to be more.
Are we talking about if I take a regular cab or a digital?
I'm not talking about a digital cab from here to the airport.
to
800?
I think it's 700.
700, there you go.
Yeah.
Right? So that's almost a third
That's what
of
I
what
said,
you might have been
depending on the
charged
time.
back in the day, right?
Okay.
So what I think this whole ecosystem did, the platforms that came into market, you might remember in the early days there was something called Easy Taxi. I remember that was the first one I used. Incidentally, I used it from here when I was coming from another interview. And that was, I think, 2013 or 2014. And what I'm trying to say is that in those prices becoming a little bit more acceptable, or shall we say more affordable, it opened up the market so that people traditionally would never take a taxi, would have taken perhaps a matatu for most of their commutes, could now for the very first time afford a taxi trip. And then of course, we're also seeing a situation today where many younger people who would have, say, purchased a car are now actually using, the hailing services pretty much for most of their mobility. But it opened up a market, it created employment. Today, I think there's an estimated 40,000 drivers or people using these vehicles as part of the economy, the gig economy. I think there's an estimate that we could be having about anywhere from 2.5 million to 3 million people using hailing services in the country. And believe it or not,
people.
Yes.
2.3.
Like individual, unique
across the
human
country,
beings.
2.5 million people are using the hailing services.
So, sorry, just as primary users or secondary users? So, on the Business Daily, just a front page, it has a breakdown of primary and secondary, meaning primary is, frequency would be every day.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it may not, I'm looking at an absolute number, right? So those who are primary or secondary, so those who might be casual, once or twice a week, and those who are using it pretty much on a daily basis, okay? And then when you do the numbers, what does that translate to? I've done the numbers, and we're looking at anywhere from about 250,000 rides a day in this country. Now, let's also talk about the size of the gig economy, because a few months ago, I did a bit of a deep dive into this. There was a report that came out, and it sized the gig economy in Kenya at about $1 billion per year, the value of the transactions, okay? And I think the hailing services side of this is a big component, I think at least 25%. But when you look at the gig economy, that's including people doing freelance work, deliveries and all these things. But basically that whole bundle is about $1 billion.
Yeah.
So what's my point, right? I think from the driver's perspective, number two, you have to look at, number one, does the driver own the vehicle or are they renting it? All right. And that's another factor, because if you talk to some of the drivers who actually own the vehicle, many of them seem to say that it's reasonably okay, that they're managing. The moment you talk to somebody who's also paying a daily rental, this is Kenya, somebody's paying you, like a landlord paying every day.
Yes.
And combining that with the fact that they also may not be seeing that the amount of money they're making is sufficient, then the problem actually doubles, right? Because they have those two issues to deal with. But I think the bigger question here is maybe coming back to the customer, the person who's actually paying for the ride. I see a lot of the conversation talking about the supplier side, but what about the demand side, right? Because I know for a fact, let's say I use the example of my son, he uses the every few days from home, he goes to do something, he comes back, and I know it's within my budget. If you're telling me that 220 shilling trip becomes almost 500, am I going to be comfortable paying that amount? I don't think so. And that, I think, is the same case across the market.
No, you're Sawa. We shall get there.
Yeah.
Back to this. Driver, whether owner driver
Yes.
or driver not owner.
Yeah.
Right? They all, by and large, will raise an issue about how much they're earning
Per trip.
per
yeah.
trip. Are those concerns justified?
I think we have to look at it in the context of broader issues, right? I think earlier on you guys were talking about our Strait of Hormuz situation, which, as you know, has impacted fuel prices, the cost of goods.
Yes.
We are seeing a situation where the cost of living crisis is affecting everyone, including the drivers, okay? So let's not put that in the background. It is tough out there. And that means that even by extension, maybe we're seeing 10, 15 rides a day, maybe now they're only seeing 8. I think a big factor in all of this is how many trips are you actually making per day? I believe the more you're doing, even at a lower price, suggests that you'd make enough money to cover those costs and it would be acceptable and practical. But at the end of the day, we need to come back to the question, who is paying for that ride? Who is paying for that trip? Right? And are they willing? Do they have that ability to bear that additional cost that is now being provided so that the driver can have a better quality of life?
Let me flip it.
Yeah.
Let me just flip it a little bit. All right? So the driver, the owner, owns, let's say, owner-driver.
Yes.
I own my vehicle. I have acquired it through whatever mode of financing.
Correct.
I've put it on the road.
Correct.
And I am on the road.
Yes.
Okay? The number of trips, notwithstanding, I'm fueling the vehicle and I'm servicing this vehicle.
And you're insuring the vehicle.
And I'm insuring the vehicle, right? And I'm also paying myself, all right? So in all these things, I'm also looking at my costs of being on the road on a daily basis.
Correct.
Per week, per month, Okay? So the drivers have got their own costs. And they're saying that this costs is not being met sufficiently by how much I'm earning in all these trips. Whether it's one trip, whether we're going to compound. Because they'll argue, sometimes some of these apps will give you very many rides. Yeah, but then those rides, at the end of the day, I've actually spent more fuel, more kilometers. That means service more frequently. And some also argue that I'd rather do 3 fewer trips that give me more money.
Yeah.
So there's that whole argument there, that how much I am earning per trip is not making sense.
Right.
How much do they earn per trip?
Well, we know that there's the 18% commission. Yeah, that is the floor that has been set in this country since 2022.
Yeah.
So that was set by the regulator. They are paid up to 18% of that fee.
By?
Oh, they pay
But,
18%.
no,
to
18%
the-
comes out from the platform. The platform will pay them, the minimum commission is that 18%.
Okay.
Okay.
So a ride that I take, let's work with a good round figure of 1,000 bob.
Yeah.
So in 1,000 shillings that I pay for that ride, 18% will be retained by the app.
Yes, the commission sits at 18%.
Right? So 180 bob
180.
will stay with the app.
Yeah.
Then the rest will go to?
The driver, but then also there's the question of the tax as well.
Okay.
There's only 16% VAT on top of that, I believe.
That
So
they're
there's
supposed to
VAT
remit.
per ride
Yes. So I think 21%.
that the app will
The
retain.
total
Yeah.
deduction. Okay.
But who is paying the VAT? Is it me,
Yeah.
the driver, who's paying the VAT?
It's
or is it
coming
the
out
app?
directly from the tech service. They do that fee from the amount of money that they pay you.
to remit
Yeah,
to the
correct.
government.
So from 1,000 bob, that
Left
would
with
mean
790.
21%. 210
Shillings.
bob.
Yeah.
Is- is
out of that amount.
790.
Out of
Yes.
1,000, yeah.
Yes,
So 790 is what comes to the driver.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
for that 1,000 bob. Okay, now they say that is not good enough.
Well, obviously, like you said, they're real costs. Not to mention the drivers who don't own the vehicles who are renting, right? But I keep coming back to the central question here. This is a marketplace. Willing buyer, willing seller, correct? When I pull that button on my app and I'm calling that vehicle, I have, number one, an idea of what this trip is going to cost. And equally so, the drivers are also informed, which is why you see sometimes the driver doesn't take your trip when it's a short one. They also know where this trip is going. They have a sense of whether or not it's worth their while. But we've got to remember at the end of the day, there has to be a willing buyer of service in that ecosystem or that marketplace for that whole thing to work. There's the platform cost. Who built the platform? How does that algorithm work to make sure that all these parties can participate? Right? There's the marketing to make this thing available. There's the trust. One of the things that I know about this, what the formalization of these systems means that, for instance, the government is able to even track taxes because now it's no longer cash. It's all digital. There's the investment that has been put to make a secure system. Many of these systems also have security accountability. So you're not just paying a fee per se to the platform. They're providing almost a holistic package, as it were, that the end user can count on. I know for a fact that there are many women who are so happy because of these digital hailing services that, under normal circumstances, they do not have felt safe. And many of these platforms do provide that layer of trust and safety. So there's so many other inherent values that come out of this. But what I'm trying to say is that there seems to be this focus just in on how much money is the driver making.
Driver making.
The money, if the fee doubles, what do I pay? And this experiment actually happened in Tanzania back in 2022.
Okay.
Right? They increased, I think, to a certain minimum fare and concurrently also increased the commission, reduced the commission to 15%. What happened is that the market basically initially looked like it was picking up and then it collapsed. And in fact, as we speak, one of the providers is no longer in the market. They tried to come back. The government had to rectify this situation.
Okay.
And now I think there's only one primary operator in that market. So we have this example of what happens when you combine a minimum fare with the fact that there's also going to be this commission amount.
Yes.
And then when you double that up, what happens is the entire situation collapses. Until
And
today, the Tanzanian government then had to bring back the rates to a level where the driver is earning and also, the customer is happy to pay that fee.
Let me think out loud here, because there's two parties that I can very easily relate to. One is a rider, and a price-sensitive rider
Correct,
at that.
correct.
And if you tell me you're doubling fares. A trip that used to cost me 250 will now be 500.
Correct.
A trip that used to cost me 1,000 bob will now be 2,000, or and so on and so forth. As a consumer, I'm just telling you, it's going to be a lot less rides.
Yeah, for free.
Yeah, that's true. Then I'm also the driver. I can also very easily relate to, because we've seen drivers talk time and time again about one, the commission that is taken, the amount of rides they have to take to essentially earn a living. There's also time caps for safety reasons. You cannot just be driving endlessly, right?
Yeah.
So I think after 8 hours or something, they can't accept any more rides. So then they'll figure out ways to game the system, essentially, to make a living. So these two people, one is price sensitive, one is not making enough. Those two, I understand. Then now the apps themselves, I feel like that's probably where there's the biggest room for for movement. As a consumer, I don't see how I could pay more or much more.
Correct.
As a driver, if I put myself in their shoes, I need to make more. The middleman
The operator.
is the one that needs to budge. 18% commission is still quite a bit for every...
Why?
All factors
Why?
considered, including what he's just described in terms of the setup of the ecosystem and
Understood.
maintaining that and making sure that there's continuous rollout of whatever safeguards need to be put in place and all of that. It's still a lot.
So I would say, understanding the amount of investment it takes, I'm not blind to that fact. However, who is more capable of going longer and stretching, right? Maybe doing 15% and recouping your investment a little bit slower. Who has more room to stretch here between driver, consumer, and the app?
and the
Everyone.
platform.
Everybody.
I think everybody, I think the key word here is balance. Okay? Finding an equilibrium that works for everyone. And I know that's not easy, but that's where I know when I wrote about this last month, I was talking about something called smart regulation, which is kind of like bringing all the ecosystem partners, meaning you, the person who needs to take a ride, you, the driver, you, the platform, the regulator, and literally sit at the same table and say, guys, we need to make this work for everyone. What are the thresholds here that work for everyone? And it's got to take into consideration also that the platform ultimately is what provides the infrastructure that makes this possible to begin with, the marketplace, so to speak, right? And I think we can say very freely that without this sort of platform ecosystem that we see for ride hailing in the market, things would be much more expensive for us under the normal circumstances. I just gave that example from pre-2013, what it cost to go to the airport or just to go to, from city center to Westlands. Those rates are probably still more than what we pay today using these services. Employment has been created at scale. University students are earning money as they go to uni doing these services. And we see really that it's too important, $1 billion a year as part of that broader gig economy. We need to create a regulation that has balance. But to simply say that we're going to give you a floor of 500 shillings per ride, perhaps, and say that that is the only solution to the problem, I don't think it looks at the entire collective. And like I said, just across our borders, we have this example of what happened.
They tried and it flopped.
So let us not go to the fact that we are going to repeat that mistake. Let us do it a bit more inclusively and make sure that there's really this sense of balance for all the parties.
You're a techie. I love a good simulation. I'm hoping you've done some simulations on what it would look like if we did, for example, double our base fares in terms of number of rides and things like that. Right?
This double thing, where did it come from?
Somebody concocted it and said that sounds reasonable.
So who's this?
And that's the number
Who
that's
is this
being
person?
that's the number that's been sort of brandished around in conversations. Not
And
officially.
I'm questioning where that number came from.
It's being said
because it's not come from the ministry.
it's not officially stated, but verbally it has been sort of heard.
It's not come from the
various
ministry.
rooms.
This verbally thing, is it recorded anywhere? I am not trusting the source of this 500. It's like sort of like, rage baiting people.
But I think where it has come from is that in the consultations that have been happening between the platforms and the regulator, they have been hearing such a statement.
So it's like a word like
what do you think if we double?
been
What if we?
Okay. Are we being set up for something? Let's take a short break. We'll come back here and hear about those simulations, if indeed you have run them, and where this idea of doubling fares is coming from. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back after this.
What's up, nation? My name is Rafael Musioka, Machakos University, third year student. I am fixing the nation by training music. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, so, fa, mi, re, do. Unjani, mwone jinsi Bwana alivyo mwema. Onjeni monde jinsi Bwana alivyo mwema.
Thank you so much, Musyoka. That's a wonderful What's Up Nation video. We love to see and hear from our fixers. In this case, really hear from our fixers. You're doing a great job as far as making sure that the next generation at least can hold pitch, and can hear what sounds a little good to the ear. Thank you so much for making time for us. Our number is 0769 590 762, 0769 590 762. Tell us your name, who you are, where you're coming from, and how you're fixing the nation. We'll play that video in the next hour, on Monday. Easy as that.
Ronificator says, great discussion. I'm a driver and a car owner, so this debate is very important to me. I'd love to contribute at some point. Please share your comment here, Ronificator, and we can then also air it on the show. Fleming Kimani is like, so wait, is Fixing the Nation a podcast or a TV radio show?
Imagine it's both.
It's everything.
It's all three.
It's all of those things.
Plus everywhere else.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's live on NTV, live on Nation FM, live on YouTube and Facebook and X and TikTok. Anywhere with a broadcast or
Internet signal.
there you go.
As long as there's a signal. We're also progressing. We will now be available via smoke signal in the coming days, just in case you want to go old school. Yeah.
I can imagine smoke figures of us guests plus our guests. I mean,
Little Caspers just
we can imagine it's like, wee, bada, bada, wee. That's what AI can do, guys.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bakari Sanya says, per trip fee model for taxi platforms is problematic because it creates a complex layer of collection bureaucracy. Monthly or annual subscription will be better. Let providers set fares.
Ooh.
But
A
that's
subscription.
Quite tricky though. Yeah. And why would it be tricky, Moses?
Well, because there's variable costs, right? You're asking for subscription unless there's a sort of a minimum threshold. If I'm doing 2 versus 5 trips, I'm at the driver's side, it means I'm spending more, right? So again, there are novel ways of playing around with these things, but I think a consultative approach is what's needed. Bring everyone to the table.
I'm just thinking about what this would do to competition and what is covered on the Business Daily today. So you have a base rate that's introduced. Are we bringing in the risk of reduced competition between the platforms? Or how does that work out? Given that, we're essentially regulating, just putting a cap on how much it is they would be charging.
Yeah, potentially, because as I mentioned earlier, in Tanzania, what they saw is, I believe one of the operators left the market, right? When they saw the unit economics no longer make sense.
Yeah.
And then when they tried to rectify it, they came back briefly, the numbers had completely collapsed. They weren't recapturing the market share they used to have, and now they have almost a monopoly of sorts on the ground. And those are some of the things that could happen in this instance as well. The competitive pressures would mean that there are parties that will just say, it doesn't make sense, let me just pull out.
Okay.
Right?
We were doing those, I wanted to do the simulations just before we went on break. I know you're a techie, so walk me through, if we're doing 250,000 rides a day currently, 2.5 to 3 million riders, 40,000 drivers, $1 billion shillings a year, those are numbers. Give me what the numbers would look like if, say, we doubled the base fare. 220 to 440 or to 500 shillings.
So last month when I wrote about this, which is where a lot of attention was picked up online, when this issue came to light, if you look at the way price elasticity works, this is one of the economic models where we sort of, people project and understand, okay, if it's consumer goods or the price of something changes, if you double it, generally you see it collapse by about 60%. All right? So think about that for a second. That would mean not just half, but over 50% of the rides that are currently available may disappear just by increasing the price by double. And then here's the crazy part. A rider was maybe getting 10 to 15 rides at a lower price, suddenly gets 4 to 5 at this double price. It is still less take home than when the floor rate was less, but more rides to compensate for that, right? So this is where economists also actually come in and sort of model and see like, okay, what are the implications of these changes? And again, bring the buyer of service to the table and ask him, what is your threshold? What is your limit or ability to pay for this at this price? And if you move it up by 50, maybe, 100 shillings, they say, well, I think that's reasonable. Maybe that works. But if you move it by 150, I'm not willing to pay that. I'm going to walk. I'm going to take public transport. So we need to look at kind of like, where is that point? Where is that sweet spot, as you call it, Eric?
Let me use you guys as an example.
Yeah.
Let's go around the room.
Yeah.
Say we need to get from here to the Stanley. Use that example earlier.
Yes.
For some reason, we just dressed too good.
It's raining.
It's raining.
That's
Yeah.
like a
It's
jam,
raining
like a
heavily,
pavement,
and you have a
like
meeting.
It's raining and we have a meeting. All right. Would you be willing to pay 500 bob from here to the Stanley? Let's go.
No.
From here to
Unilaterally?
Stanley? No.
I'll get
Buy
drenched
an
in the
umbrella
rain.
for 200 bob.
You can buy an umbrella for 200 bob.
And walk.
Okay. Remember, we have a meeting to get to. We still have a bit of time. Would you be willing to pay 400 shillings?
No.
But the stand is just down the road, yeah.
I know the Stanley's just down
Yeah.
there.
That's the thing. I think sometimes, because I am Kenyan, the first thing I'm going to say is no. Even that to 20. If it was 100 and then you told me, would you be willing to pay to 20? I'd be telling you no. Right? But today, I would pay the 220
Yeah.
because that's the price.
Because I'm
Yeah.
used to that.
You see, that's the
Yeah.
thing. So it's sometimes quite subjective to say, how much would you be willing to pay? It's how much maybe would I most likely afford to pay, right? Because I may be willing to pay 1,000 bob, but I don't have it. I can't afford it. I may be willing to pay the driver a bit more, but can I afford it?
I like that.
I think that's where the question then would come in. But then, and I like the fact that Moses is saying, let there be a tripartite conversation here. App, driver, consumer.
Correct.
Now, app, driver, for as much as we've seen in all the news, app driver usually have these engagements constantly.
Yes.
Correct.
And it's being moderated and mediated by NTSA or the Ministry of Transport.
Yeah.
The latest one is this proposed regulations, amendment to the regulations that starts looking at, can we amend the base rate? And I want to look at what they are saying. Minimum trip compensation. A transport network company shall ensure that a transport network provider, driver or motorcycle rider, so it's both, all right?
Yes.
Providing passenger or goods transport services through the platform receives for every completed trip the applicable minimum trip compensation prescribed in the second schedule. And that second schedule has been left blank for input. And the drivers and the operator and the apps have been told, give input.
Yeah.
It categorizes for vehicles from 500 cc's to 1500 cc's as one category, and then the second category above 1500 cc's, the motorcycles, the two-wheelers of around 500 cc's, and the three-wheelers of around 500 cc's, less or 500 cc's. It's been left open, so open for conversation right now. If we said that we were to introduce the user into this conversation, how could the user contribute to this conversation?
I think the user, and again, we need to think about who is the user, right? Where do they live? Are the rates in Nairobi the same as Kisumu or Mombasa?
Right.
Dynamics also are regional or localized in that context.
Right.
Where, public transport in some areas are not as readily available as a hailing service. And I think if the user, right, and I think we can all speak, from the point of view of being users ourselves, comes into that conversation, I think we bring a level of reality that maybe currently is not being understood, because we are the ultimate payer of that service. And we will say, with our money, our vote being our payment, whether or not we're willing to pay that amount. Now, sometimes there's context, right? Yeah. The question you asked earlier about going to the Stanley down the road. If I'm going to the Stanley to meet a guy who potentially is giving me a piece of business worth 1 million shillings, I will happily pay 5,000 shillings, right? Sometimes the context also matters. What is that trip
But
for?
if I'm going to interview for a job and I have none right now,
Yes. Would you show up drenched?
I wouldn't show up drenched,
also-
but I don't have the money.
Yeah,
I just,
typically, yeah.
Say you had the money and it's the only money that you have left. And here's your chance to actually either appear for the interview and get a job, possibly, or don't show up and don't get a job.
I would spend it.
You'd risk it,
Yeah,
right?
I would
So
risk
I think
it.
the
Yeah.
context conversation.
It does matter.
No, you're taking your kids to school. They have to be in school by 7 because they're doing their exam.
Yes. Would you pay?
Would you
not
pay 1,000? Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me ask the driver welfare question, which is something, and the welfare of everybody concerned. So the two primary people in this are riders, and with riders, there's been a lot of moves towards safety features, ensuring that rides are much safer, that you're able to get even SOSs, that women are able to pick women drivers, that women drivers are able to pick women riders. That, you know, there's a lot working for safety. And from a cost perspective as well, consumers definitely have a certain cushion. We can feel it. It's a discount every other month, maybe. You get a little discount here, a little discount there. It's tiered pricing. If you can't afford the big one, take the small one, and so on and so forth. That's working. But the driver welfare seems to kind of fall through the cracks, which is then how the conflict comes in. So we're at a place where essentially we don't want to charge the consumer more, but is there room for driver welfare and something that can be done to improve, their working conditions or their take home or something of the sort, so that everybody leaves the table with something?
Well, the first problem there, I think, is how do the platforms classify the drivers? Are they employees or are they contractors, right? So let's start there.
Yes.
Part of it is framing around, you know, are you an independent or are you my employee? Because obviously if you're my employee, that's a different story.
Very true.
I'm required to give you your hospital security, your SHA, your whatever. As independent operators, you don't get that benefit. I think there's definitely room to see what else is possible, what can be done to make it better. And I think in many ways, what many of the platforms have done is they provided a way so that they can take the informal and make it formal, such as the ability to get financing. That was not the case before. They've gone and negotiated with banks. They've also, I think, looked into scenarios such as insurance policies that have a more cost-effective or affordable access, because they're able to aggregate all these guys and go to an insurer and say, here are my guys, can you give them something that you normally wouldn't give them ordinarily in an informal scenario? And they provide that formal layer that makes that possible. So I think there's possibly more they could do, maybe. But at the end of the day, you've got to remember that this entire ecosystem did not exist even 20 years ago. You know
what? I want to argue that actually the app guys are doing this out of the kindness and goodness of their heart. From where I see it business-wise, they don't have to do this. I am running a business. I provide an app that will link you with customers. I go and promote this to the customers so they use the Then I'm coming and telling you, come onto my app. And I will give you rides, all right? And for every ride that I send your way, you'll give me 18%, all right? Now, it's upon you to service your car, to finance your car, to do all those things. If you guys have come together as an association, you can come together as an association, form a company, form whatever, that can go to banks to negotiate for yourselves, or insurance and negotiate for yourselves. Me going to negotiate to ask insurance companies to favor you because I have a list of you guys and I can, give an assurance that I have looked at you guys and you've been with me for a long time. That is goodwill.
It is.
That's all goodwill.
It is goodwill, but
and I don't think we should ever look. I mean, sometimes I think
we should take it like as a given.
Like as a given, like it's an expectation that they ought to do. So what else? What are these things that are the pain points for the motorists, for the owner, whether it's owner or driver? The thing is that person who's running that business on that side, their pains include, I am servicing this car, this fuel is expensive, this insurance is expensive, and all those. Whose responsibility is that?
Sorry, there was just a little aha moment before he answers that.
Right.
The financing bit goes back to what he mentioned earlier, which is that when the drivers own the car, you find that, and this is even from my own interactions with drivers, that if it's their car, they're slightly better off because you don't have then to pay us, that rental model. So then the financing, as much as it's out of the goodwill, it does feed in back to, if I finance you to get the car, you own the vehicle yourself, then that means a lot more goes back to
it problem solves.
Which is upon you. I mean, are you going to look for financing so that you own your car? Are you going to look for financing and then you hire drivers so that the drivers run? It's your own business model. You choose what you want to do.
And also create your own fleet if you want. Because we've had and seen enough drivers who started off with a rental model, then went on to get their first first car, second car,
Yeah.
that can now have reversed it and become the
The
employers.
employers, yeah.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, let's be very clear about one thing. Yeah, the platform is creating the marketplace.
Yes.
They are able to bridge that person who needs this with that. And I'll give you an example. Many years ago, I used to live in, Kileleshwa. And one of the things I remember I used to see when I used to drive around this roundabout was these mamas who would be sitting near the roundabout, 30, 40 of them,
Kijiwe.
waiting for somebody to pick them.
Yes.
Yeah.
For that
Mafua.
kibarua,
Yep.
to go and do the washing, the cleaning of the houses and all. And then what was so sad is sometimes you drive by, you come back an hour, you see the same lady sitting there, you see another one sitting there, they're not getting any work. They might have come all the way from Kawangware, they're waiting, they don't know what's going to happen. Now, my viewpoint is that if you think about this marketplace scenario, it's actually the same thing with the riders, where my vehicle that might have been idle, maybe I used to park outside the Stanley, or I used to park somewhere in Upper Hill, waiting and hoping somebody shows up to use my car. If I was lucky, maybe I got 2 or 3 rides a day. But now this ecosystem creates that transparency, this marketplace, so it's bridging the demand and the supply in a very seamless algorithmic way using their system. And suddenly the opportunities that are available become visible because the platform connects everyone. And I think we need to respect that, because without that platform, without that ecosystem, this wouldn't even work to begin with. It's broken.
Correct.
Not to mention the trust. Many times you find that people are coming from other countries, they get to the airport, and what is their assumption? I'm going to hit the button, I know this brand, I can use it on the ground here.
Yeah.
All this is all the things that the platform has done to create this trusted marketplace. Now, at the end of the day, this driver or the person who owns that vehicle may not even have had a job to begin with. Remember, in many markets internationally, people don't do Uber 24/7.
Yeah.
They get off work maybe at 4 o'clock and then they'll do it till 8 p.m.
side
I'm a
hustle.
student university. I do it for 3 hours. They do it in Nairobi as well. I make a little bit of extra cash. And it's that optionality that I can do something on the gig side even as I have a daily job. In Kenya, I think what's a little bit different is that some people, well, many of them are using this as 24/7 their work.
53%.
So the dynamics are a little bit different,
Yes.
right?
Even the story on Business Daily today is saying the same thing. In Kenya, 53% of those who are in this business are considering it their primary
Full
job.
time, exactly.
And then 47% of the ones who are.
Correct.
If you compare that with Nigeria, where 75% of the drivers are actually doing it as a secondary job.
Correct.
And primary people is 25%. South Africa, 30% of the drivers, it's their primary. 70% it's their secondary. Kenya is a different market where this is a source of
And that
income.
possibly is part of the challenge here, right? It's not an extra income, it is the main income.
It's main income.
Yeah. So I think when you look at all these nuances and then say, look at the complete picture, look at the bigger picture. What are all these different dynamics here? And then how do we find a balance that works for everyone?
And I was heading towards placing the responsibility at the government's doorstep. Right. So wear and tear is also a factor of the engineering of our roads and the condition of our roads. There are many times that you'll ask for an Uber, a Bolt, a Farasi, but then it's called Faras.
Yes.
You will get to...
In red, I was like a Pharisee. Literally, I saw Eric on a horse. Just, but Pharas.
Well, the enemy is also actually the horse,
Yes,
right?
it is.
You will be, many times, you will be taken off-road to get to your home. There will be an off-road section to get to your home. Wear and tear rises. Whose responsibility is that? Government. Fuel prices going up. 50% of the component of fuel price is tax and levies.
You're missing a big one.
Is that?
You know the one I'm
Government.
picking?
Yeah.
The
Traffic
cost of the-
congestion.
Traffic congestion as a result of road and conditions of our roads. Whose responsibility is that? Government. If
Even
those
as we're
things were
financing
sorted,
vehicles, 50% of the cost of a vehicle is
is
tax.
tax again.
Yeah. And there's
Government.
actually jurisdictions I've seen that do have subsidies for ride-hailing apps as far as taxes are concerned. For ride-hailing, for any vehicle that's going to go into the digital taxi system, there is a subsidy.
They
So
have the same
And
there's-
and it's licensed differently. Even their number plate will be different. You know,
Yeah.
license this thing differently, give it a different number
There's
plate.
another dynamic to
So it
this.
operates there.
I want to bring in, maybe you've noticed the electric mobility space is blowing up.
Yes.
Specifically for the bodas.
Yes.
And why is this? The operating cost goes down by a factor of about 30 to 50%.
Yeah.
Now imagine, if you will, if we had a regulation that removed all taxes from electric cars, because apparently right now that is a major, the taxes we have on electric cars in this country are very high compared to, let's say, Ethiopia, where they even, they're actually assembling them and stuff over there. Now, if the operating cost could go down for those guys, and that's why they're selling like hotcakes, then it allows them to retain more of the earned income.
Yes.
Correct.
So there are measures that potentially on a macro level could actually start to solve this problem.
And I think that's where the issue should be. Because 71% being retained by the driver, the owner, is quite substantial if not all of it is going into doing these things that the government ought to have done in the first place. Even if we increase this from 71% to say to 80% and said the commissions are lower by that percentage, there'd still be an issue.
Yeah.
That's true.
There would still be an issue. Even if they told us that now, you know what, this whole burden comes to you, Mariam. You're going to stop paying 220, start paying, that's not even to 500, start paying 300. The driver would still, at some point, feel the pinch
Yeah.
because the conditions are not improving.
They're
Yeah.
not. And also, I'm thinking about the level of expectation on the user. If I am going to actually then pay that cost, then I want a clean car. I want a car that is well maintained. If I'm riding a bike, I want a helmet. I want
A reflector.
reflector. Basically, my demands as a consumer also go up. So what has to give for those conditions to actually then be met? I've seen fixers who've come in with very big opinions. We have Esther Ogbona saying the rapture. Anyway,
Uncle Zach, yeah.
let's move. Bakari Sagna saying 500 bob monthly subscription for taxi platform is adequate or even generous for a platform that contributes little beyond the connection.
For how many rides?
For how many
Yeah,
rides?
for how many.
I
So
mean,
I think
then we
what-
introduce a new problem.
I think what he's trying to do is kind of this subscription system that we've seen with now the Eats side of things,
Yeah.
whether it's Bolt Food or Uber Eats or Glovo, who now have a subscription-based thing.
Yes.
But their numbers are very different.
Correct.
I don't think it would work the same. Again, e-mobility, a lot of the rides now on those platforms are either an electric bike or an electric motorcycle. So
Yeah.
the cost of there's
that
500
would
bob
not
monthly
work.
subscription and then you ride for free. Come on,
How
let's
does
be
that
for real.
For courier, that makes sense,
Yeah.
like you've implied, Mariam.
Yeah.
We have David Motero saying policymakers have totally failed drivers. 91% of drivers in Kenya depend on these platforms to work. David Motero goes on to say misclassification of platform workers and other people talking for drivers without drivers' input. I believe the drivers are also represented in these conversations. We have David Motero goes on to say nobody ever talks about app commission. If they want to help drivers, let them lower their commissions. Mariam,
If they want
your
to,
point.
if they want to help drivers, let them lower their I mean, I really do genuinely think that's still something to look into.
Yeah.
But we don't have input into what
What the components
what
are.
the components
in the
are,
18%.
right? Of the 18%.
If you just think, let's just start with marketing is huge. The reason why you use one versus the other
True.
is
Yeah.
because they've marketed. That's a huge cost.
Market
Running
trust.
Yeah,
Trust,
True.
running this app
Safety, yeah.
constantly. You're on it. It's operating. It's 24/7. It's a cost. There's several costs. Maybe actually we should just ask them one of these times. Or Moses, you can ask what are the cost components of actually having this app running?
I think so, because I understand, like right now, I can very easily see the costs for a driver.
Yeah.
And I know what a rider can, but then you don't have much insight into that side of
this
it.
other side.
So definitely something to, of course, ask and get to know about.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think the question we need to ask ourselves is if we just look at that story from Tanzania, why did that operator come back? They lost so much market share, decided this doesn't make sense, they pulled out. It means that there's some sort of baseline
Yep.
of minimum business
Yep.
viability that
Yep.
has to be in play for them to be in the market.
Yep.
And I think the assumptions are being made that the platform can
making
absorb that additional
Yeah.
cost
Yeah.
and still make a reasonable amount of money. We don't even know what their operating model looks like.
Yeah.
We don't know what their costs
Actually,
of
I don't even
business
know
are.
if they've broken even. I keep
Yeah.
Yeah.
remembering
That's the
that a lot of tech platforms are still far from breaking
Oh,
even.
yes.
Yeah.
Even when they are doing millions of rides,
Yeah.
billions in revenue, and this is globally, not
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
in Kenya. The break-even point is yet to be achieved with so many of these digital platforms. So that's a fair point. Let's end the conversation there, Moses. But just as a parting shot, when you look into the next few, let's say, months, and you're trying to see what would be a reasonable outcome for drivers, and the platforms, what would that look like as far as this little stalemate is concerned?
Well, the first thing I want to see happen, and I really do hope this happens, is I think there needs to be broader consultation, right? Especially with the people who are actually paying for service. And even when we talk about the people who are passengers who do the rides, it's not just the individuals. There's also the businesses and the organizations. Like my company, we pay
A subscription.
not a subscription.
I'm kidding.
We have a company-based one. It is transformed our transportation as a business because people just know that they need to show up for a client meeting, they push the button. So there's a broader ecosystem of beneficiaries. And I think all the parties need to be represented and then find that balance, right? That is, okay, guys, we understand the driver's plight. We understand the cost of living is also hurting you as the passenger. We understand the platform also needs to have a viable business in the market as an investor. Where do we meet in that sort of situation so that, there's a bit of give and take on all sides.
Right.
And I think at that point, we can find a compromised position of sorts that is actually acceptable to all. And that's where I think we need to go with this, which is why I'm saying the regulation needs to not be or sound so one-sided. We need to make sure it's balanced on all sides.
Okay.
Let's wrap it up there. The conversation will keep on going as far as this matter is, still making headlines. In the next hour, we are joined by the outgoing French ambassador to Kenya and Somalia to discuss all things his tenure here in Kenya.